Davis steps under center. Gibson and McClendon behind him. Davis with motion by Richard. Will give the ball to McClendon. He leaps. Oh, he doesn't get in. He fumbled the football. Carolina holds. The game is over. And Carolina has won the game.
Finley to throw. Over the middle, intercepted. Wolford again. Wolford the other way. At the 30, the 40. Wolford to midfield. Miles Wolford with the pick. The heels on the doorstep of an enormous victory.
Left side of the line. Hood standing to Williams' right. Williams gonna throw. One-on-one. Davis has it. Touchdown. Carolina wins. Carolina is the Coastal Division champion. Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio is going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
Connor Barth for the possible win. Snap, spot, kick away, high enough, long enough. It's good! It's good! Carolina has won the game on a 42-yard field goal by freshman Connor Barth. Good gosh, dirty.
This is the Heel Tough Blog Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome into this edition of the Heel Tough Blog Podcast. It is preview time. Anthony Pagnotta and Josh Marlowe here with you as we get ready to preview the Tar Heels matchup with the defending national champions, the Clemson Tigers. This will be the first time that the Tar Heels will play a number one ranked team since the 2015 season when they played the Clemson Tigers in the ACC championship game. Of course, everybody knows how that game turned out, 45-37 in favor of Clemson. Of course, you have the onside kick that will live in infamy as to it's the ultimate question as to whether or not Carolina, if they recover that, goes down, scores, and potentially ties the game, sends it into overtime. But we're not hurt over that. We've let that go. Let's just let people believe that we've let that go, because we definitely still haven't. But this will be your chance to get revenge. And it's also the first time that Carolina will play a number one team in Chapel Hill since 1999 when they played then number one Florida State. That game did not go so well for the Tar Heels, a 42-10 win for the Florida State Seminoles. Tar Heels come in as a 28.5-point underdog. I believe that line has slid back a little bit. I think it's now 25.5, but still a very big line against Carolina. Of course, that's probably a little reactionary after what happened against App State at home, the loss 34-31, but Carolina's got to shake it off. That's been the focus of the coaching staff in the early, throughout the week, especially early in the week during the press conferences. And Mack Brown, says, look, there's a lot of things that this team has to clean up. But I think at this point, Mack Brown still wants these guys to believe there's a chance that they can go in on Saturday and upset the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, I hope so, because he said in the offseason that, they want to beat Clemson, and that's an expectation of these guys. Look, Saturday is a daunting task. You're playing a whole different animal. This is the best team in college football. They've got the best quarterback, the best set of skill position players. They haven't missed a beat since winning the national title last year. Dabo Swinney's got that thing rolling. Our best hope and prayer is this. A, you show up ready to play at 3:30, because we haven't done that all year. When we kick the ball off, let's be ready to play.
Well, if there's a game that you can get up for, it's got to be this one. If you can't get up for this one, I don't know how to help you.
But B, Clemson is prone to having one game every year that they are not ready to play because the opponent just isn't good, or for whatever reason.
On the level that they think you should take notice.
And so hopefully Clemson looks at us coming off back-to-back losses to Wake Forest and Appalachian State, and we're that team, and for some reason they're not ready to go early, and Carolina can keep it a close game, and you pray Sam Howell makes a play late. In a weird world, I'm kind of glad that Carolina comes in this game 2-2, because if this Carolina team came in undefeated, it was a really good chance that this College game day would have been on campus for this game.
Yes.
And that would have meant that, well, Clemson would have, this is a pretty big game. Clemson comes in ready to go, and there's potential for it to get ugly. 3:30 kick. So maybe, like I said, hopefully Clemson sleepwalks. Trevor Lawrence hasn't been as good as we anticipated him being his second year.
Right.
But, at some point he's going to find a rhythm in the offense, and he's going to be the Trevor Lawrence we saw last year who tore up college football. So measuring stick for Saturday is really what Saturday is about. How much further do we have to go to get on a level where we can compete nationally? I think that's what we're going to learn Saturday is how much further does Mack Brown got to take the program?
Right. Well, I mean, you mentioned the fact that Clemson always has that one game each year. Unfortunately, they won't be looking ahead because next week for them is a bye. So, yeah, they won't. And their next opponent is also Florida State. So I don't know if there's a look ahead factor. I mean, maybe there is. I don't know. Florida State barely beat Louisville. So, I mean, you take that for what it's worth. I think you're right. What they've got to do, Trevor Lawrence has to have, one of those types of games that we've seen early in the year where he struggles to throw the football a little bit. Travis Etienne, I don't know, how they're going to stop him because let's be really honest, their run defense has been better, still not great. It's going to be a tough test trying to slow him down. But, I mean, look, Carolina, really the thing that has to happen is Carolina has to wreak havoc. Turn this into one of those games where Clemson gets uncomfortable, which means you've got to force 3, 4, 5 turnovers in order to turn this into the type of game that you can win. If there's a time for this offense to grow up and become that juggernaut that we think they could possibly become late in the year or sometime next year, this would be a great place to start. Put on one of those really great performances. But ultimately, I mean, look, I think you're right. Measuring stick is a good way to phrase it. I think that if this team comes out, shows the type of fight that we've seen in every single game this year, which is a 60-minute game, at least give yourself a chance in the fourth quarter. Maybe it doesn't come down to the final drive, but at least with, I would say 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you still have a chance in the game where people would say, okay, if they, if they score, get a stop and score again, they have a chance. That's where I think you'd like to be at. The other thing for Carolina in this game is, can you make it out healthy? Because, look, you've got a ton of injuries already, and now you're playing one of, if not the most physical team in the country. If you can get out still in relatively good health without any major starters going down in this game, I still think you would call it a win. But ultimately, I think this is one of those games where, believe it or not, with where the Tar Heels sit at 2-2, is this not more of a kind of gauge for the fan base than it is for the team as well? Like, you just come off a loss to Appalachian State. You're 2-2, humongous underdog against a team in Clemson that, if we're being real honest, many people in this fan base probably don't feel we're going to beat. How does the fan base show up, still support this team, and still be loud to the point where it gives them at least a chance in this game against Clemson?
Yeah, you and I have had some discussions. I do think the fans will show up. You and I will be in attendance for the game.
That's right.
So they showed up for Miami. They showed up for Appalachian State.
They did.
All right. So I think the fan base will have bought in mainly because of Mack Brown. I think it helps that you have Late Night with Roy the night before, so you have the holdover from that and the excitement building for the upcoming basketball season. But no, I mean, this is a measuring stick for the program, and that's what I told you for and for us as fans. Okay, well, this is where we're at. If we go out and lose by 60, we got a long way to go. If we keep this game close in the fourth quarter, okay, then we're still growing in the right direction. I think the game plan. There's no conservative on Saturday if I'm Phil Longo, right? Like you've got to pretty much say this is what we're doing. Whether we're going to sling it 50 times, which I'm of the opinion I trust Sam Howell to do that. Let's go ahead and do it because if you try to play conservative, this game will be over at halftime.
Yeah, I mean, if you're basically, yeah, because we talked about this on the recap podcast for the App State game. It seems like they're really still trying to play with that mindset of keep ourselves in the game to win. I'm going to tell you, that's not going to happen against Clemson. Your mindset against Clemson has to be, let's come out, get off to a fast start, and make them realize, okay, we're in for a 60-minute game. This isn't going to be over at halftime. So, I think you're right. What that means, does that mean take the reins off and let Sam Howell throw the ball 60 times in one game? Maybe that does. Maybe that means feeding Javonte Williams the football 30 times in one game. I don't know what that is, but you've got to find out what it is early in the game. I would probably lean with the latter, or excuse me, not the latter, the prior, because I don't think that we're going to be able to run that easily on this Clemson team. But I mean, here you've got to. It's like you said. You've got to have a great game offensively, and just pray that your defense can make some stops along the way. Create those turnovers that you need. Cause some issues. And I mean, who knows? Maybe it is able to happen. This is the other thing that I wanted to ask you. We'll talk about here for a few minutes. If let's say that Carolina is able to somehow pull this huge upset over Clemson. What does this mean for this program?
It means that they're close to competing again nationally, which is what we want. This is what Mack Brown had us before he left for Texas. And I think that's what it is that, okay, if we can find a way to win this game, you're that close. But then moving forward, how does the team program handle success? Because they start 2-0, then they lose 2 games. That the Wake Forest loss isn't bad, but losing at home to App State doesn't look pretty good.
Yes.
So that's going to be the question, because this arguably would be the biggest win in the history of the program. I don't think there's any debating that if you beat Clemson at home on Saturday. Name a bigger win in Tar Heel football history. For us, our biggest win is probably at Georgia Tech at 2015. As Tar Heel fans, because that was what springboarded that fun 2015 year. Right. So that's what it is. Is okay, you're doing the right things off the field. Now you're doing some good things on the field, but how do you handle it? And that's what I guess that's where we're going to be at, because that's when we look at Saturday is how close are we with the athletes. We don't have half athletes that Clemson has. You and I have raved since the staff got hired. This is the second best staff in the conference.
Yeah, can we reel that in back in for just a second?
If Carolina's going to win on Saturday, they're going to have to be that kind of staff.
Right, and they have not been great since the start. They have had their bumps in the road as well, as Mack Brown has said.
And that was expected because they've never worked together.
Right.
And I don't think people understand that there's chemistry with the players, but there's also chemistry with the coaching staff.
Right, that was one of the big issues when you look back at why the defense has struggled under Larry Fedora. The staff was never the same year in and year out. You changed your defensive back coach 4 straight seasons. How the hell do you expect these kids to be able to just adjust on the fly? And like you said, the staff, where you've got a new guy coming in that wants to play a different way in whatever unit it is. Defensive line, linebacker, defensive backfield. Same thing on the offensive side of the ball. So, yeah, I think you're definitely right. I know that you've been one that hasn't been thrilled with the game plan that you've seen from Phil Longo. I think that it's going to take some time. But, we talk about taking time. It's weird because I feel like you hear a lot from the fan base, we're in this for the long run. Don't jump off the bandwagon. But I think in a lot of people's minds, they're really quick to criticize when something doesn't go the way they expect it to go.
Yeah, and look, that's why we're on Twitter and all that, so we have our outlet. But no, this is the game that Longo's got to. If we say we trust Sam Howell, okay, you got to trust him Saturday, because doing what you did against South Carolina, Miami is going to get your ass blown out at home. And with fans leaving in the third quarter, if not sooner. Let him. We know there's going to be lumps, and he took one against App State. I think the guy's got enough moxie to bounce back and be a confident guy and lead this team. Let him do it. You just take the reins off, because that's the only way you're going to win Saturday. You're going to have to probably score in the 40s, if not 50s, if you want to win.
Yeah. So give us into the latter.
Give us 50. That kind of game plan. I want aggressiveness from word go. I don't want none of this. Well, let's just no. Come out and let's start throwing. And let's run off the extension of the passing game.
Yes, that was exactly what let the passing game open up your running game. Don't force the running game like you've done at the start of every single game so far this year.
And if you've got a couple of trick plays up your sleeve, bring them out.
Yeah. Let's see what we got. Let Mack Brown throw that deep ball. Let's see who we can bring out that can create havoc against this Clemson team. Because you're right. I mean, if we're going to try to win methodical football, run the ball down their throat, maybe open up the passing game at certain points throughout the game, hit a couple of deep passes, but the rest of the game just focus on those short little dink and dunk complete. That is not going to work. Not against this Clemson team. You've got to create big plays that put this Clemson defense on their toes. And can they do it? I don't know. I think it's possible. We saw it early in the game against Miami, but we haven't really seen it outside of that. But if it's going to happen, you're right. It's got to happen this week. And you mentioned Sam Howell. I think if there's a kid that can do it, it's Sam Howell, because the kid believes that he can do it himself. I'm not saying, look, the people that said that Sam Howell is better than Trevor Lawrence, you need to stop. You need to get the hell out of here, because that is a severely wild assumption. This kid beat Alabama in the national championship game by 28 points. Okay, this kid, Trevor Lawrence, is legit. This is the best quarterback prospect that they have had in an NFL draft. Most people are saying probably since what? Definitely since Luck.
Yeah, since
maybe
Andrew
even
Luck.
Before him.
Going past that, probably Peyton Manning.
Yes, I would say Peyton's probably where he's at. I mean, he is that good.
He's pro-ready, if there ever was a pro-ready quarterback in modern college football now.
I mean, I understand he's turned the ball over a little bit, but is that not because, the coaching staff is just saying, this kid's a stud? Even if he does make mistakes, we've got a guy that could win the Heisman Trophy at running back as well. Let's open him up and see what he's got. I mean, they're in a spot. He has thrown 5 interceptions this year, and they have had one game that they have really, had to worry about going into the third quarter. That was A&M. The other 3 games were done at halftime. So, I'm not criticizing the kid that much. I can't do it, because he's still the real deal. Could Sam Howell eventually end up being better than him? I mean, who knows? I would say no, just because, Trevor Lawrence is the prototypical guy. Has the huge frame, massive arm, can make every single throw. I think Sam Howell, will definitely be a guy that could eventually find himself selected in the first round of the NFL draft if he projects the way that many probably will think he will. But come on, man. Trevor Lawrence is a rare breed. To say that is just, you're really reaching if you're a Tar Heel fan.
Right.
So, I don't know. We've kind of given our keys to the game. How many keys to the game really are there? I think at this point, you got to get Clemson in their own heads, making mistakes. And really on your end, you've got to believe that you have a chance in this game. Other than that, I don't really know if there's any keys to the... what kind of keys can you do? You could say protect the quarterback, but this is an offensive line that as of right now, if we're saying that Charlie Heck is out, we'll be starting, only one guy that has a start before this season. Every one of them will be at least, either a sophomore or a freshman, against the defensive line that will probably put all 4 guys in the NFL.
Yeah,
at some point.
You've got to hope from some divine intervention from the football god Saturday.
Yes.
X and the O's, Clemson is better than you. It's like you said. You've got to believe in yourself, and we've talked about if there's If there's a couple coaches in football that can make me believe that I can get up and go beat Clemson, Mack Brown seems to be a guy that could get you up to go try to beat the number one team in the country. You got to hope that Clemson isn't who they normally are on Saturdays. And you got to do the little things that you haven't done all year, which is protect the football, cause turnovers, be good on third down on offense and defense, means get off the field. And that's really it. This game figures if you're going to win, it's going to be a shootout. So Sam Howell's got to be exceptional, and you've got to make plays. And you got receivers got to find grass, all that, all the stuff we've talked about. They've got to do, but at an even higher level than they've done so far.
Yes,
because it's not it's going to take. I don't believe in that the whole 110% thing. It's going to take 110% to win Saturday.
I think it might take 100, 120, 130 to win on Saturday. It's going to take a little extra.
So
yeah. So I mean, game predictions. I hate to do this. This will be the first time that this will be a consensus selection of we're probably going to lose. I think we go down. I think we go down fighting. I'll tell you that much. I think Clemson. Look, there's so much on this team. I mean, the athletes, mainly. I mean, you look at the offensive side of the football. I mean, if the passing game isn't there, you've got arguably one of the two or three best running backs in college football, right there in ETN. Their defense just absolutely loaded. Still, I mean, their secondary. You talked about it early in the year when we saw them play. Was it A&M that you said their secondary looks a lot better than you thought? That was the area that was the biggest question about their defense, because let's be real honest, their defensive line is just a machine now. They're rolling guys in and out. Linebacking core is going to be fine. Look, I think Carolina makes it interesting for a while, but I think Clemson's just got way too much. I'll go 42-28 Clemson over Carolina.
Yeah, I think Clemson wins. This was the one home loss I had, so my bold prediction goes out the window.
There you go.
And I'm wrong. I think Clemson wins. I think they win 56-31. I'm with you. I think Carolina has it. Still a game, middle of the third quarter, but by then there's too much of what Clemson has. Wears us down on both sides of the ball, and they pull away for another victory. But I think we'll learn some stuff. There'll be some good positives we'll take away and some negatives we've got to work on. But, I mean, look, we knew going into this when we saw them on the schedule, this was probably as much as an L as we knew entering the year.
That's why we were hoping that App State game was a win because, I mean, like you said, and strangely enough, I mean, if they have won the game against App State, you said there's a chance game day could have been there. I don't know about that. I think they probably still would have leaned the Nebraska game against Ohio State, mainly just because of the environment, the history with Nebraska. But, I mean, there was definitely still a chance. I told a guy, that was in the section that I was sitting on Saturday, honestly, the loss to Wake Forest wasn't the worst thing because, yeah, as you mentioned, if this team comes in 4-0, did that game not have a feel like if you projected ahead to 4-0 of the game a few years ago where Vanderbilt came in 4-0 against Alabama, got destroyed, and didn't win a game the rest of the year? So, hopefully, Carolina, can show some things, show some fight against easily. In my opinion, I think they're the best team in the country. I think they're, if you want to make arguments for Alabama, go ahead. I think Clemson has proven right now that they can't be taken out of that number one spot unless they lose a game somewhere, because right now they are just continuing to dominate people. So I give the edge to Clemson there. It's going to be a tough game. But, I mean, is there anybody that you think, is a standout player? I mean, Sam Howell's the easy one to go to, but is there anybody else that maybe you think steps up and has a big game on Saturday that we'll be talking about on the recap podcast or will be trending up in the stock report?
I think if offensively, I'd probably go, as much as we talk about the passing game, Javonte Williams would probably play a factor.
Not a bad option, yeah.
If Carolina tries to win. Defensively, Chassarat. Maybe he
quiet week against App State, yeah. Only 2 tackles, but yeah, other than that, he's looked really good all year. Okay. I would say offensively, I'm going to surprise people. I thought the most consistent receiver against App State and the guy that really just caught everything that went his way. I think Bo Corrales is going to have a good game. He really played well against App State, caught everything that he needed to. Really looks like he might be the most reliable hands on the team, mainly because I feel like, De'Ami Brown, after the first 2 games of the season, I think people realized, okay, this kid's pretty good. We have to make sure that we can prevent him from getting open as easily. So I think, Bo Corrales is that guy that we'll be talking about. And then defensively, Aaron Crawford, I feel like is an easy one to go with. But, he's had such a great start to the year. I think that, he's a guy that's going to pop up a couple of times because he'll get in the backfield and make a few stops on Travis Etienne. But, I think one of the other guys to keep an eye on in this game that people will be talking about, I think is going to be Trey Morrison. It's his time to step up. He's got to start doing something. And against this wide receiving core, if there's a time to step up and start making plays, it's now. I think Trey Morrison comes out, steps up to the plate, and has a pretty solid game. But as we said, it's going to be a tough game all around. If they, if 1 or 2 guys have a good performance, Clemson's going to be able to attack someone else because there's just so much talent everywhere. So, of course, we'll have the recap for you guys. We'll have the article up on the website, www.heeltoughblog.com. That's where you can check out everything. Make sure you scroll down to the bottom of the page and subscribe to, it says subscribe to the newsletter. I'm going to go home and fix that. Make sure you scroll down. You can subscribe to all the articles. We're going to send them directly to your inbox, so you'll get every article. All you have to do is download the Wix.com app, which is pretty simple. You don't have to pay for it. You go on, once you download it, you'll be able to read every article the minute that it comes out because it's sent right to your inbox. So that's a great feature so that you guys don't miss anything. And so that's how, let's go over how it works again with the weekly thing. I think this will be the last week that I'll do this. So you'll have the recap of the game, which will come out right after the game ends on Saturday. I'll probably stay up there, get that knocked out for you guys. And then we'll have the stock report, which will come out Sunday or Monday. Usually it leans more Monday. We'll have the trench report, which comes out Tuesday, and then we start it all over with the preview for the next week. Of course, the Clemson preview will be coming out, is actually out right now, but it usually comes out on Friday morning, so make sure that you guys check those previews, recaps, stock reports, and trench reports out so that you make sure you can keep up with everything going on with the Tar Heels. Before we get out of here, the last thing that I did want to touch on really quickly was recruiting. You did have the decommitment of 3-star athlete Lamarian James. Kind of a shocker because he was one of the more vocal recruits, actually might have been the most vocal recruit amongst the Tar Heels 2020 class trying to recruit players to Carolina. His decommitment's kind of a weird one, though. Many people feel like the reason that he did decommit, well, there's 2 reasons. One is that he wants to go with Keandre Lambert, the 4-star wide receiver from Maury High School, also out of the state of Virginia. So I think that's one of the big reasons he might have decommitted, just to see where he's going to go. And then if Lambert decides to commit to Carolina, he could recommit there with him. Or if he goes elsewhere, they would be a package deal. The other thing that a lot of people are thinking is that he does want to play the offensive side of the ball. Carolina was really looking at him more at cornerback, mainly because it's a position of need. And the other reason is because Dre Bly has been the guy that's been recruiting him, which makes sense considering that Dre Bly recruits that Chesapeake, Tidewater area of Virginia so well. So I think, he might be looking elsewhere for those reasons, but you never really know. I don't think he's a guy that's completely taking Carolina off of the table just yet, so that might give you guys a little hope. But even if he does go elsewhere, Carolina's class still 22 strong, ranked 19th in the 24/7 composite team rankings, and also still in really, really good standing with 2020 5-star weak side defensive end Desmond Evans. He was on campus again this weekend. I believe to this point, Carolina is still the only campus that he has been to. So at this point, Carolina is the heavy favorite. It just continues to get strengthened every time he comes on campus. And that's something that Carolina fans should be very encouraged about. If you want to know a little bit more about Desmond Evans, make sure you go to HeelToughBlog.com, go underneath the Scouting Reports tab, and that's where you can find his scouting report. It's him and Jaden Chalmers went there this past Friday to check out both of those guys. Both guys had great performances, so go read about that. Some of the other guys that stood out as well, some potential names to keep an eye on going forward. Later on in this class, maybe as a preferred walk-on in the running back, Larry Baldwin, and then maybe in future years, Tyrick McKindle, who had a fantastic game. He's a sophomore, 2022 class. Keep an eye on him to potentially get an offer down the line. So a lot of great stuff for you guys to read on the Heel Tough Blog website, and there is something big coming to the Heel Tough Blog website that we will announce very soon. So keep an eye out for that. So that's going to do it for this preview edition of the podcast. Make sure that you go to wherever you listen to this podcast and rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can do that on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, radio.com, anywhere you get podcasts. The Heel Tough Blog podcast is there. Make sure that you guys go and rate, review, subscribe for us. We'd love to hear from you guys. We always love we can take the criticism, but we love the praise as well. So make sure that you guys leave a little bit of both for us. So once again, want to thank you guys for listening. For Josh, for Anthony, we say so long, and we will see you guys next week after the Clemson game. Remember, as always, go Tar Heels.